On Wednesday night, an Iranian ballistic missile struck a hardened underground complex in the hills outside Jerusalem. That facility is not listed on any public map. It does not appear in any official Israeli government directory. And according to 3 independent intelligence sources cited by Reuters, it is the primary secure command location used by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu during active conflict operations. The IRGC published the strike confirmation within minutes. Their statement was 4 words. The head is next. Over the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly what Iran hit, what missile was used and why it was chosen for this specific target, and what it means for this war when one side demonstrates it can reach the location where the other side's leadership shelters during a bombardment. Before we continue, please subscribe and like the video. It keeps this reporting going, and I genuinely appreciate every single one of you watching. Now let's get into it. Here's what we know. Israeli authorities have not confirmed the strike on the record. That silence is the first piece of information. In 9 days of this war, Israeli military spokespeople have addressed every significant IRGC claim within hours, either confirming, denying, or qualifying. The bunker strike produced no official response for over 6 hours after the IRGC published its statement. When the IDF spokesperson finally addressed it, the language was carefully constructed. They stated that Israeli leadership remains fully operational and that command continuity has not been disrupted. They did not say the facility was unharmed. They did not say the missile missed. They said leadership is operational. Those are not the same statement. The facility in question is a reinforced command and communications complex built into natural rock formations southwest of Jerusalem. Israeli security architecture has maintained hardened leadership continuity locations since at least the 1970s. Their existence is not classified at the level of total denial. Their exact locations and technical specifications are. What Western intelligence officials and Israeli security researchers have long described as the primary wartime command node for senior Israeli leadership sits at a depth and construction standard designed to withstand conventional munitions. The critical question is whether Iran's new deep penetration warhead capability has changed that calculation, and that requires understanding what Iran fired on Wednesday night. The missile identified in IRGC communications was designated Fateh-2. This is not the original Fateh hypersonic glide vehicle that Iran unveiled in 2023. The Fateh-2 is a substantially modified variant with one specific engineering upgrade that makes it relevant to hardened underground targets in a way its predecessor was not. The original Fateh used a hypersonic maneuvering re-entry vehicle capable of speeds between Mach 13 and Mach 15 in terminal phase. That speed made interception extremely difficult, but the warhead was configured primarily for surface and semi-hardened targets. High-velocity impact against reinforced concrete, but not optimized for maximum penetration depth against deep bunker construction. The Fateh-2 carries what Iranian state sources describe as an earth-penetrating warhead package. The warhead uses a delayed fuse architecture that allows the weapon to drive through multiple layers of reinforced material before detonation. The detonation occurs inside the structure rather than on the surface. Against a standard reinforced concrete bunker, the difference between surface detonation and internal detonation is not marginal. It is the difference between crater damage and structural collapse. Iran revealed the Fateh-2 publicly in November 2023. At the time, most Western analysts treated the announcement as aspirational messaging rather than confirmed operational capability. The Wednesday night strike is the first reported operational use of the system against a hardened target in a contested environment. Whether the penetrating warhead performed as designed against the specific construction of the Jerusalem command facility is the question neither government has answered. But the IRGC does not typically claim specific high-value target strikes without some confidence in the outcome. Their intelligence failure rate on publicized strikes has been low enough throughout this conflict that dismissing the claim without investigation is not analytically defensible. Now consider what it means strategically if Iran has demonstrated even partial penetration capability against hardened Israeli command infrastructure. Every military command structure in the world is built around leadership continuity. The logic is straightforward. You can destroy frontline units, disable logistics, degrade communications, but if the decision-making center survives intact, the military organism continues to function. Conversely, if the command node is disrupted, even temporarily, the operational chain breaks, orders stop flowing, coordination collapses. Units in contact with the enemy make local decisions without strategic guidance. The whole becomes less than the sum of its parts. Israel's entire wartime command architecture assumes that hardened facilities protect senior leadership from all but the most extreme weapons. Nuclear bunker busters, massive ordnance penetrators, weapons that only the United States and a small number of other states possess and would never deploy in this context. The assumption was that conventional ballistic missiles, regardless of how accurate or fast, could not threaten deep, hardened construction. The Fateh-2's claimed earth-penetrating capability if validated, removes that assumption. And Iran appears to have selected Wednesday night to demonstrate it, specifically in response to a development that occurred 48 hours earlier. On Monday, Israeli intelligence services publicly confirmed the elimination of 2 senior IRGC Aerospace Force commanders who had been responsible for coordinating missile launch sequencing across multiple waves of Operation True Promise 4. The IDF framed the operation as a significant degradation of Iran's command and control capacity for its ballistic missile program. Iran's response was the bunker strike. The translation is direct. You hit our commanders. We demonstrate we can reach yours. That is not an emotional reaction. That is a calibrated signal about the rules of this conflict and who sets them. Iran is communicating that the targeting logic Israel has applied to Iranian military leadership applies symmetrically. If command infrastructure is a legitimate target category, then command infrastructure on both sides is in play. And Iran wants Israel's planners to sit with the knowledge that the facility Netanyahu uses when sirens sound is now part of that target category with a weapon system potentially capable of reaching it. This is the part of the war that changes behavior at the highest levels. A military commander planning operations under the assumption that their leadership is safe in hardened facilities makes different decisions than one planning under the assumption that those facilities are now targetable. The psychological weight of that shift is significant even if the physical damage from Wednesday's strike turns out to be limited. There is a concept in strategic deterrence called the security dilemma of the command node. It describes the paradox that arises when a leadership shelter becomes a known target. If you relocate, you reveal that the original location was compromised and that you are operating under duress, which signals vulnerability to both the adversary and your own population. If you stay, you remain inside a facility whose security guarantee has been publicly challenged by a weapon system you cannot dismiss. There is no clean option. Both choices carry costs. And Iran has placed Israel's leadership inside that dilemma deliberately, and in public, by publishing the IRGC confirmation immediately after the strike. The objective is not necessarily to kill Netanyahu in a single operation. The objective is to make him, and every Israeli planner around him, calculate differently about what is safe, what is reachable, and what the next phase of this conflict could look like if Iran chooses to fire again at the same coordinates. Now look at the broader context in which this strike occurred, because the bunker hit did not happen in isolation. This is day 10 of Operation Epic Fury. The United States and Israel have conducted over 2,000 strikes across at least 26 of Iran's 31 provinces. Supreme Leader Khamenei was killed in the opening hours. Senior IRGC commanders have been eliminated throughout the campaign. Iran's missile production infrastructure, fuel distribution network, and command facilities have been systematically targeted. And Iran has responded with 29 confirmed waves of retaliation, totaling over 500 ballistic missiles and nearly 2,000 drones, 40% directed at Israel, 60% at American assets across the region. The IRGC has stated explicitly that it considers the United States the primary enemy and has prioritized American targets for maximum punishment. 7 American service members are confirmed dead. The Strait of Hormuz remains functionally closed to Western commercial shipping, with oil above $100 a barrel and no timeline for reopening. Iran installed a new supreme leader within 8 days of Khamenei's assassination. The chain of command transferred with institutional stability. The missile waves never slowed for the transition. And now Iran has fired a deep-penetrating ballistic missile at the location where Israel's prime minister shelters during the bombardment. The escalation ladder in this conflict does not have many rungs left between where it is now and places that cannot be walked back. Here is the political layer that the official statements are failing to address. Netanyahu's government has not publicly acknowledged the vulnerability exposed by Wednesday's strike. Doing so would be politically impossible and operationally counterproductive. But within Israeli defense planning circles, the question of whether hardened leadership facilities now require additional protection or relocation will be discussed at the highest levels before this week is over. The fact that Iran has a weapon that can at minimum attempt penetration of those structures is a planning variable that did not exist in the same form before Wednesday night. On the Iranian side, the IRGC has now demonstrated, or attempted to demonstrate, 3 distinct categories of escalation in 10 days. First, volume. Overwhelming air defense systems through sheer numbers of simultaneous inbound threats. Second, targeting. Systematically attacking energy infrastructure in a pattern designed to fracture civilian and military fuel supply simultaneously. Third, decapitation threat. Firing a specialized penetrating weapon at the location where the opposing leadership shelters. Each of those categories represents a different kind of pressure. Volume pressure test systems. Targeting pressure tests, supply chains and economic resilience. Decapitation threat pressure tests, human decision-making at the top of the command structure. Iran is running all 3 simultaneously. That combination is the most sophisticated, coercive strategy Iran has deployed in any conflict in its modern history. and it is being executed while absorbing more than 2,000 incoming strikes from two of the most advanced air forces on Earth without visible command breakdown. Donald Trump stated this week that the war would last a little while longer, and that Iran would ultimately have no choice but to capitulate. The White House has maintained its projection of 4 to 6 weeks to military objectives. Neither statement has been updated to account for the demonstrated targeting range, now covering Israeli leadership facilities. Iran's President Pezeshkian stated this week that Iran will not negotiate under bombardment and will not capitulate under any circumstances. The new Supreme Leader's first public communication affirmed that the missile campaign would continue until its objectives were achieved. Both sides are stating publicly that the other side will break first. Neither side has defined what breaking looks like. And the weapons being deployed are moving into categories that make the definition of acceptable endpoints harder, not easier, to reach. Share this with everyone you know who thinks this war still has a predictable trajectory. Day 10. A deep penetrating Iranian missile fired at Netanyahu's hardened command facility outside Jerusalem. The IRGC claiming it can reach the location where Israel's prime minister shelters under fire. 29 waves of retaliation with no slowdown. A new supreme leader operational and the chain of command intact. Oil above $100. The Strait of Hormuz sealed. 7 Americans dead. Over 300 Iranians dead. And a new weapons category, leadership facility penetration, now formally part of the targeting grammar of this conflict. That is not a war approaching resolution. That is a war expanding its own rules in real time, and when wars expand their rules, the people paying the price are never the ones who wrote them. Thanks a lot for watching. I really appreciate your support. Join the discussion in the comments below. Do you think Iran has actually proven bunker penetration capability? And where does this targeting logic end? Let me know. Please subscribe and like the video if you want to stay updated, and click the video on screen to see another one. I'll see you soon.